Let me ask you, are you passionate about what you do? And do you have a greater purpose behind it? If not, then let me tell you that the lack of passion and purpose might be the reason that your energy levels are so low, that you look forward to the weekend, that your performance is low, and that you feel overwhelmed, stressed out, dissatisfied, or even bored and sluggish. Now, believe it or not, passion and purpose are created by a neurochemical cocktail in your brain that not only makes pushing feel good, but it also results in high performance, as well as flow, which is a state of total absorption, extreme focus, heightened productivity, and creativity. And therefore, in this live Q&A I did with Purpose and Burnout coach Teany Hidalgo, we will dive deep and explain everything you need to know about passion and purpose. That is, of course, what is passion and purpose to begin with? What are the neurochemicals that create them? Why are passion and purpose indispensable for you? What is the link of passion and purpose to getting into flow? And again, flow is this extremely productive and fulfilled state of total absorption. Then how did Tiani and I find our purpose? And finally, of course, we will give you tools of how you can find out your passion and purpose so that you can enrich your life with deeper meaning and with fulfillment. Now, it's a longer discussion, but I highly recommend you to watch the entire video because we share some gold nuggets and, of course, the science behind all of that, the science behind passion and purpose, which you will probably not find elsewhere. Now, if you're excited, please take a moment to smash this like and subscribe button so that we can build an army of high performance and neuroscience enthusiasts on this channel together. I would highly appreciate it. That said, my name is Nicholas. I'm a neuroscientist, dementia researcher, as well as a high performance and flow coach. And this is everything you must know about finding your passion and purpose for deeper meaning and fulfillment. And we are officially live. Wonderful.
Welcome back, everybody. Super excited to be with you, Nicholas.
Definitely also excited to meet you today, Tiani. And welcome everyone to our Q&A number 4 now, which is about passion and purpose. So just briefly, my name is Nicholas. I'm a neuroscientist and a high performance coach. And of course, I'm joined by...
And I am Teany Hidalgo, and I am a burnout and purpose coach. So it's a kind of a timely topic because that's my jam. It's my jam. So it's totally in my wheelhouse. It's one of my favorite topics. And it's actually one of the things that I started to do as a coach when I started back in 2010. So it's totally in my wheelhouse. And it's, I love it. I always light up when I talk about it. I don't know if it's your favorite topic too, Nicholas. Maybe there's other things.
I mean, you basically hyped me up by talking about it, how much you love the topic, so how can I not love it now?
Well, good. That's the idea. I'm sending out my good vibes.
I mean, that's the point of passion and purpose, to be excited, right?
Yeah, love it. I'm going to start with a quote from Dolly Parton. Actually, I might start with two. One of them is from Dolly Parton that says, "Figure out who you are and do it on purpose," which I love. I think people struggle probably with the part about figuring out who you are. The doing it on purpose and with passion thing, I think is probably a little easier. But once you can figure some of this stuff out, it's totally one of those things that blows burnout and stress and overwhelm out of the water because it just energizes you. And so I wanted to start with a little bit of a definition around what it is. Because I think people talk about purpose and they think it's so like esoteric and out there and all these things. And maybe there's a component of that, kind of connects you to energy and high energy and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's not your job, right? It's not something that you're necessarily physically doing, although it's part of it. It's really about the deeper meaning behind your life and why you're doing the things you do. And the reason it's why it's so crucial and critical and important and energizing is because having that meaning makes everything make sense, right? It gives you a reason for living, a reason for being. It puts you into my favorite word, which is alignment. It allows you to realign your values, everything that you care about, and it helps you know wake up in the morning. It tells you why you're awake. It helps you like plan your day. It helps you like do all the things short term and long term that really like energize you and invigorate your life. So for me, that's why talking about purpose when it comes to even topics of burnout and things like that is so important, because for me, it's one of the critical things that you need to start figuring out in order to realign yourself and energize your life. So I don't know if you wanted to add or change that up, Nicholas, but that's my general definition.
You just gave us the purpose of life, basically. What is the sense of life? I felt the excitement there. So most
Yeah.
definitely, that's a topic, a big one. And I agree. Knowing a passion and purpose, it makes things feel different. I mean, it's like a kid during Christmas, when you get up in the morning, you're all excited to open up the Christmas presents. And that's pretty much how it feels when you actually know your passion and purpose. Because you get up in the morning and you're so excited to get to work that you just can't wait for it. And I think that is just something amazing. Just think about it, how incredible it is. You get up in the morning, you can't wait to crush it. And that's what most people unfortunately never have. Because again, they don't have passion, they don't know what the purpose is. And actually, it is true, because I mentioned it in our first Q&A, actually, and the happiness Q&A that we did. And to reach the highest level of happiness, we need purpose. Because level one is the moment-to-moment happiness. You eat a piece of cake, you get a little bit of dopamine, you feel good, and it's gone. You probably need to eat another piece of cake if you want to have this again. Then, of course, the second one is a high flow lifestyle. I point this out as a flow coach, and flow lifestyle means that you are in this flow state, which is this state of total absorption. So you're so deeply immersed into what you do that you forget about everything else. Literally, you forget about yourself even. And that is also because some brain areas that you use to focus, to make logic planning, etc., those are inactivated in flow. So yeah, you forget about time, you forget about yourself, you just merge with the task, and you can get into flow of everything basically. You could be video gaming, hopefully not. It could be work ideally. And that is also where the highest levels of happiness come from. And that is that if you do something you love, if you get into this flow state, and if you do it in order to make a positive impact on other people, and that is what we call purpose, or what I define as purpose. Once again, this is to work to make a positive impact on other people.
Love it.
And in that context, it actually interests me quite a lot, and that's the fact that Teany, actually, between what is the link between knowing your purpose and burnout? You, as an expert, you probably know a lot about this, so please inform us.
Oh, such a good question, because I think it's great because it gets actually into my story about how I even got into this field altogether, which is related to my personal life. So for me, you know, I went through burnout several times through my career, and I call it going from pain to passion, right? Because sometimes you have to experience some level of pain, not always, but sometimes that actually becomes a catalyst for you to then do something different, and that ends up being something, completely cathartic and important and relevant and synchronistic in your own life. So that's exactly what happened to me, because I went through a series of rough moments, burnout and whatnot during my career. That actually made me shift gears completely and turn to taking care of myself, getting back into my health. And then because of that, I started venturing into, well, what's causing it, right? Why am I burnt out? Why are these things happening to me? And it turns out that I was just unhappy. I was really burnt out. I was stressed out, and I didn't find true meaning in the work that I was doing. So all of that sort of stacked on top of each other and created a really ugly scenario that turned into pain, that then sparked for me to get into a different field, which is why I got into massage therapy. I started opening up my own business, and through that I started getting into coaching. And with the coaching aspect, what really made it meaningful for me, which is what we're talking about, right? Purpose is really that deep meaning behind why you're doing the things that you're doing, is because it wasn't just about me. It wasn't about just my wellness. Because I had gone through all the pain, it actually sparked me to help other people. because I've always desired to help others, right? Whenever I was doing something in different phases of my life, I was always like, oh, how can I problem solve? I was always like a creative problem solver, but it was always in the context of like, computers and doing work and things like that. But it was never that meaningful to do that work. But now turning this pain into passion and helping myself, it allowed me to sort of see the bigger picture of how I can help other people. So that turned into my true purpose, which, is really problem solving and helping people in a way get out of their own way, right? Because when we're in pain and we're suffering and in burnout, we're not thinking about how to solution this stuff. We're sort of in the midst of it. We're in the crux of the pain. But when we can use someone like Nicholas and myself to support you out of it, to see things that, sort of are the unseen for you, then you get to see the bigger picture and you get to see the interconnectedness of things. You get to find the things that you're actually passionate about, the things that truly bring you meaning and the bigger picture of life. So that actually sparked me to get out of burnout, because now I had a bigger purpose for the work I was doing. I wasn't just fixing my life. I was helping to support people fixing theirs, right? And getting into real passion, real purpose, and real meaning. So, sorry, I get passionate about this topic.
Absolutely. That's the point of it, being passionate about it, right?
Yeah, it was just so critical for me to just care about this stuff. So, and that's how I got into out of burnout and into passion. And I know that this stuff really affects our minds and our bodies. And I know that you love talking about flow. I also see it as a state of flow when I got into that idea of purpose. So my question for you is, how does purpose affect our minds and our bodies, and how is it related to flow, right? How does that work, in the concepts of our purpose in our life?
Now, generally, purpose is one of the entry keys for flow, and that is actually because of the neurochemistry behind it. So, as you know, I'm a neuroscientist, so I like to talk about the biology behind it. And I found this really cool. First and foremost, I need to cover that the most important neurochemical that you need to get into flow is dopamine. Maybe you know about dopamine. Dopamine, I think everyone knows dopamine as the rewards neurochemical. So dopamine is what makes you feel pleasurable, etc. But what dopamine is actually more about is motivation. So if you get a lot of dopamine, then you start to feel excited and you feel extremely motivated. For example, let's say you think about your dream job, and while you think about this, a little bit of dopamine is released in your brain, and that makes you motivated. That wants you to get your dream job, so you feel like pushing, like getting things. That's the actual role of dopamine. And another thing you need to know for this is that you can get dopamine via two ways, in fact. The first thing is for an external reward, as I call it. For example, a piece of cake.
Mhm.
That's very simple, but it could be the job of your dreams, of course. So you could get your dopamine from that. You think about it, it makes you excited. And after you get it, you also get a little bit of dopamine, and it gives you this feeling of pleasure. And the second way to get dopamine is actually from activities that you do. You could like video gaming, for example, and just thinking about video gaming gives you dopamine, gets you excited. And doing video gaming itself gives you dopamine and it makes you feel good. But this could also be your work. It could be any activity that you do, basically. And for purpose, what we want to focus on, of course, is to make our work the source of dopamine. And I also find this really interesting because there's a certain neurochemistry behind it, a signature between the feeling of passion and purpose, even. And what passion, for example, is high dopamine. So you do an activity that gives you loads of dopamine, and that's what you need for passion, in fact. And you need a little bit of the stress hormone norepinephrine because there has to be some push behind it, in fact. So again, it's not just you need to enjoy it and you need to have a little bit of a push behind it, then you get passion. So you combine those two neurochemicals, dopamine for motivation, reward, and drive, and the stress hormone norepinephrine. If you have both, then you have passion, which is really
Wow.
interesting as I find. And what is interesting is that purpose adds a little bit more to it. When you have purpose, you add in oxytocin, in fact. Now, oxytocin, maybe you know it, but oxytocin is this neurochemical that makes us more social. So maybe you see your best friend, then a little bit of oxytocin is released, and you become more social. You're like, hey, this is my friend, and you feel like talking to them. You feel like bonding, like interacting. So that is what oxytocin does. And also, the neurochemistry confirms that if you want to have purpose, you need oxytocin. That means you need to interact with other people. You cannot have purpose if you don't have this interaction with other people because you don't have oxytocin. And there's also another neurochemical involved, endorphins, which are painkillers, by the way. So it all comes together. You have this activity that you really enjoy, that activity that gives you a lot of dopamine. You have a little bit of push behind it. That's passion. And then if you want to take it to the next level, then you get to purpose. And in order to get to purpose, you would have to add in social interaction, helping other people, because those are simple ways to get oxytocin. So once again, the biology
Nice.
confirms that doing what you love in order to help other people works.
I
And
knew there was a science behind all this.
is in fact, and I think that's the fascinating thing about it, because most people, they tell you have to do this, you have to do that, and it's really generic advice sometimes. But do what you love. This generic advice that every entrepreneur tells you, it has a biological reason behind it. So it
Right.
actually makes sense. You can prove it with biology, and I find this really exciting, in fact, because it tells you that this is actually the way to go.
Yep.
And then finally, of course, there's flow. And flow is everything. Flow is pretty much a cocktail of neurochemicals. So you get a pleasure cocktail basically out of these neurochemicals. So in flow, you have dopamine, again, which gives you pleasure, motivation, and drive. You have the stress hormone norepinephrine, which gives you energy. Then you have oxytocin is actually more on group flow, but oxytocin gives you more dopamine, which is another thing because talking to other people, in return, oxytocin gives you more dopamine as well. So it's like nature rewards you for interacting with other people with dopamine, basically. So you get the reward neurochemical for interacting with other people.
Yep.
Many interesting things. You have painkillers in flow. You have anandamide, which increases euphoria. So many neurochemicals here. But the one thing I want to mention is that in order to mimic how amazing you feel in flow, all of those neurochemicals, you would have to take LSD, cannabis, cocaine, and all of that stuff at once, and they will probably kill you. So don't do that, kid. So that is how incredible real flow actually feels. And honestly, it's adrenaline junkies, in fact, are flow junkies, believe it or not, because they do these risky things to get themselves into this flow state. And again, being able to get into flow with the work that you do every single day, that is something incredible. And that is why it's so strongly linked to happiness. I just threw a lot of neurochemicals
Love
here
it.
at you, but I find this really fascinating because once again, it tells you that if you love what you do, you get into this flow state. And if you do what you love in order to help other people, you not only get purpose, but your ability to get into the flow state goes up even more. And this is just biology, but I find this interesting because biology proves all of the things we've already known. We know that
Right.
we need passion, we know that we need purpose, and that is the biological background behind it.
Love it. Love it. I have to say, I'm not an adrenaline junkie, but I did used to snowboard, which is considered an extreme sport. So,
Now, if you jump off cliffs or something,
I mean, yeah, pretty much. I was jumping off cliffs.
you did
So that
actually.
was fun.
Ooh. Right?
Black diamonds are crazy. I'm just saying, for those of you who know what I'm talking about, snowboarding and skiing is crazy.
Crazy stuff. Now, that aside, what actually really interests me is, I mean, I talked a lot about biology, but I think what you pointed out is important, that it has a lot to do with alignment. So my question for you in that case is, what actually matters? So how can you be in alignment with your purpose? Maybe just knowing your values, etc. And how can you realize that you're not in alignment with your values?
Yeah. So one of the things I realized when I was going through my journey is, I think we talked about it once. I got into Maslow's hierarchy of needs and the 6 human needs. And I realized that my passion that I discovered, right, the purpose of what I was doing, it actually satisfied all of my human needs and at really high levels. So that's when I was like, okay, there's something to this, right? It's not just, yes, it's neurochemical, it feels good, it feels good to do the work and all these things, but it's actually satisfying my needs, which means that it's in alignment with my values, right? So one of the things that I talk about in my coaching is 3 things, which is I help people decompress their history, because I think a lot of the things that we've experienced in life, um, cause burnout and stress, and kind of take you away from who you really are and what you really value and the things you really care about. And so part of the work is like step one, detangling you from, all the things that are really not important to you anymore, right? Detangling you from the stressful things, from the beliefs, from all the mindset, background, activities, events, things have happened to you that are no longer relevant in your current life and that are not of value. So doing that and letting go of who you basically thought you were in order to start embracing who you actually are and want to be, right? So then the second part is actually getting into discovering your passion and purpose. And we'll talk about this in the tools part, so I won't get deep into it, but there's a way to start, figuring out the things that you like, the things that you care about, the things that are, in alignment with what you care about right now, not 10 years ago, right? Not what your mom said to you, not what your friend is doing, right? What you actually care about. And so there's a process of sort of whittling it down to being what actually is passionate for you and what has meaning for you. And then the last piece is owning it, right? Which I call it creating your brand, which is in alignment with sort of what legends you want to create for your life, right? Like what do you represent in your life story? And it's basically the story a person wants to live and tell about their lives. So, once you figure out what your purpose is and what that looks like, then creating your brand identity and basically owning it, right? It's kind of a mindset thing, but it's also sort of owning and believing who you are now, right? Not who you were, but who you actually are, what you believe, the things that you care about, the things that you're passionate about, and how you actually want to present that into the world. So what does that look like? And that can translate then into like a job, certain hobbies or activities and all these different things. So those are the different levels of, how to get out of the whole, burnout and everything else, and then sort of step into your brand, your legend, your purposeful self.
So if I were to summarize that, it's first and foremost taking a step back, assessing what is actually important to you,
Yeah,
and then starting living this.
absolutely. Absolutely 100%.
Nice.
And that's how it's done, guys. It's easy.
On paper, it's really easy, but I think what
Kidding.
most people don't realize is that you can do this in a single day if you really wanted to. You just have to take some time, maybe 1 or 2 hours, and think. Just think about what is important to you.
Yeah,
How is it now?
yeah.
How do you want to live your life? How should it be in the future? And I think it's, once again, one of those thought exercises that most people never do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's, I talked about a little bit about pain to passion, and I want to hear your story as well, Nicholas, as I think that sometimes things can be catalysts to help you understand what that is, right? So you don't have to just go to the library and go through the list of careers,
Yeah.
right? You can actually see elements of your life that have supported where you're meant to go, right? And what you're supposed to do with the skills you have, and the values you have, your beliefs, and all those things. So definitely. So I have a question for you. What
Mhm.
happens when we lack purpose? What does that look
When we
like?
lack purpose, I think the first thing that happens is that we become depressive. And if this lasts for too long, then we might develop a mental disorder, in fact. And I can confidently say this because most mental disorders out there, they all share the same traits. or the same features, and that is the fact that you have a sense of meaninglessness. You feel empty. You feel like whatever you do has no point. And that's why I developed depression to begin with. And again, I'm a neuroscientist, so I like to go back to the biology. Why is that? You know, you have no meaning, no purpose. Where's this coming from? Why are you not happy? And one of the reasons why is again because if you're depressive, you don't work for anything, you have no flow. This is super biological, but think about it. You get up in the morning, there's no activity that you can do. There's nothing that you enjoy doing. So there's no activity in your daily life that will give you the dopamine. And
And
again,
nothing to look forward to, right?
pardon? Sorry?
And nothing to look forward to.
Exactly. And there's actually another thing Brandon Bircher pointed out, that happy people constantly anticipate something. And what this means is that anticipating also releases some dopamine in your brain. So once again, there's also a little bit of happiness hack. But going back to happiness, if you want to be happy long term, then you need to have an activity that you can ideally do every single day, and that gives you dopamine. That's super biological, but that is basically what happens. So you want to have an activity that really engages you, that gives you dopamine and gets you into this focused flow state. And now think about what happens when you have no purpose. There's nothing you do. You have no passion. There's nothing you love doing. Of course, you get depressive because there's nothing that would give you the happiness neurochemicals, which include dopamine. So,
Right.
once again, if your day is empty, you have nothing that would give you the neurochemistry that would drive you forward, then at the end of the day, you end up in depression. And that's what usually happens, in fact. Because look at the average depressive people. They have no energy and drive. There's nothing they actually want to do. They just sit around all day. And again, if you wanted to invert that, then you would simply have to find things that you're interested in, things you're passionate about, and then think about how can I do this to help other people possibly. And that is the best way to get out of a depressive phase. And I confidently say this because I was actually institutionalized for depression at a very early age, when I was 17, in fact. And I got out very quickly. And do you know why? Because I was lucky enough to have a goal. I had a clear-cut goal, and the moment I got in, I told myself that I can do this better. I know I can do this better. And I had a clear focus, I had a goal in mind that I wanted to accomplish. So I had something to grow towards. I had an activity to push. So I had a little purpose. It's not what you would call a big purpose, but I had a goal, a clear-cut goal that I wanted to work towards. And that is what finally got me out of depression. And out of that
What
was
was
now,
the goal?
pardon?
What was the goal?
The goal was very simple, to make myself better, to make myself
Oh,
feel better. It was a very simple goal, but that's actually where it all starts, by setting a goal, to push yourself to your limits, to work towards something, to improve towards something, is actually one of the ways to get into flow. So it all starts with setting a goal. The next step is to find an activity that you enjoy, that you love. And following that is then thinking about how you can help others on a grander scale. It all came from there actually for me, because I'm a high performance coach now, because I went through this depressive phase. I know how it feels to be in a bottomless pit, and I want to avoid that other people have to go through the same. And that's why I'm here also talking to you about passion and purpose right now, simply because to share the message that you can overcome depression. And it all starts by setting yourself a goal, by focusing on self-improvement, and by finding what you enjoy, and by working to help other people. These are the steps that you need to take. It's very simple, but you can work yourself happy. Literally, you can make yourself happy. You just have to take the necessary steps and get out of bed. Don't lie in bed all day. I mean, that's a recipe for disaster.
very true. I like that you could work yourself into it. I love it.
I mean, what I wanted to say in this, or what I want to point out, is that happiness is in your control. What you accomplish every single day is in your control. It's all just by claiming control, just by taking action.
Yeah.
Now that's it. What I always found pretty interesting, actually, that's a little question,
Mhm.
and that is what happens in terms of burnout, because I talked a lot about it, how you get out of depression, etc. But in the context of burnout, what actually really interests me is if the clients, your clients, come to you, are they actually looking for burnout relief? So do they actually want to, again, relax, finally be able to enjoy themselves? Or are they actually coming to you to find clarity? Because once again, finding clarity, I think most people actually never do that. So I'm interested to hear your opinion about this or your
It's a
observation.
really good question because I got two programs for that. I have one for one direction, I have one for the other direction. So it's funny because when I first started coaching, I created what I call the Purpose with Passion program. And the purpose of that program was to help people discover their purpose. So I basically drew in people that were actively looking to switch their careers, to find themselves, to realign with their values and their purpose and all these things, right? Which is great, right? But then the pandemic hit and people were quitting their jobs left and right, which is actually ripe for an opportunity to find yourself, right? To find your purpose. But along with that came burnout. And even before that, when I taught Purpose of Passion, it already included an element of detangling yourself from your burnout, from your stress, from things that weren't in alignment. So I think that what's happened the last few years actually just sort of shined a light on that aspect. So now people come to me because they really want to, de-stress. They want to get out of burnout. But they don't understand the reason, right? So part of the work is actually helping them understand that the underlying reason is actually related to purpose. It's actually related to your lack of alignment, of not being on your purpose, of all the emotional, chemical, all the reasons in the background that are leading you to get to this point, which is why people are, we're in the Great Recession, right? Or Great Resignation, the biggest period where everyone's quitting their jobs because nobody's happy because they're realizing now that we've had to go internal that this is the life, not the life that they wanted, right?
Mm.
So to answer your question, both, right? There are people that come to me who are not stressed out, but who don't understand what to do with their lives, right? And sometimes they're depressed. And then the other side of the spectrum is people who are incredibly burnt out, who just don't realize that they're out of alignment, and going into your purpose is actually going to help you realign yourself. So both is the answer.
So would you say a 50-50 split? Just out of interest.
Well, honestly, right now, I think it's probably more like 75 on the burnout to purpose side rather than the purpose with burnout, right? Like people are not really thinking, yes, they are thinking about like, what career am I going to have? But it's more about, I'm so stressed out in my current career, right? There's always two sides of the same coin. And this time around, it's more about helping people get out of that stressful time, get out of the burnout. Because I think that when people are too, and you can probably speak to this from a neurochemical perspective, but when they're too stressed out, you cannot possibly focus on going through your purpose. There's no way. You first have to help them sort of come down from that and get out of the depression and the stress and all that. Help them get to sort of a level ground, and then start to build on that, right? Start to build from a better place. And then you can start getting into, well, what are your real values? What really matters to you? And how can we build your purpose into that and all those different things. So yeah.
There's definitely a biological background, by the way. Stress hormones, what they do is narrow down your focus. So what the consequence of that is that you're less creative and
Right.
you become more hypersensitive emotionally. So in such a hyped up state, if you're less creative, if you have this tunnel view, probably not the best time of your life to think about what you want to do in the future. So
Right.
you're so focused on here now on answering those 1,000 emails in your email inbox, you don't even have the time to think. So I guess there's a good point that you have to step back first to relax and calm down, and then you can start thinking about what the hell is actually going on
Yeah.
and what do I actually want.
Yeah. Being in fight or flight does not help you. fighting your purpose at all.
In that
It
case,
helps
yes,
you.
definitely not.
Absolutely. You need to definitely come down from that before you get into any kind of real work, for sure.
Definitely makes
Um,
sense.
okay. So I'm curious, is there any science that supports um, the idea around mindset and how changing your mindset can support you getting, connecting with your purpose and purpose discovery?
Now, in terms of mindset, there's actually pretty cool science out there. I also mentioned this because I just ran a high performance course with my clients. And of course, I had to look into the science as a neuroscientist, as always. And in terms of mindset, a pretty cool thing is actually that mindset can affect your rate of aging, it can affect your health, it can affect your performance and your well-being in general. And just to give you a few examples of a few studies, the first one was actually one I picked up a few weeks ago, and that's the fact that stress, believe it or not, increases biological aging. I think we wouldn't have guessed that. But what I found really interesting about this study was the fact that if you have high emotional resilience, that means if you have a more positive view of stress, so you think that stress enhances your performance, for example, you like the pressure behind it, then these people did not age anymore when they were stressed. Think about it. Biological aging, so how old are the cells in your body? If you're stressed, you age faster, but if you think it's not a problem, you don't age fast anymore. And I think that is
Wow.
crazy. Just think about it. And there are many different things like that. For example, one I pointed out for one of my clients, which was an allergy study. So children had peanut allergies, and they were given peanuts to desensitize to that. So you eat the allergen so that you over time react less to it. And it sounds pretty simple, but for a little child, this can be quite something because you get puking. It could be that you get rash and stuff like that, upset stomach, things such as that. And just telling them that, hey, the side effects you get, those are good for you because they show you that the treatment is positive for you. Had many benefits because all of a sudden the children didn't have as many problems anymore. The anxiety went down, even the symptoms went down, and most impressive was that the amount of of antibodies. You normally produce antibodies when you eat an allergen, and they literally produced less antibodies when they were told that again, it's a good thing when you have all of these things. And I
Wow.
think the most crazy one was actually we discussed a while ago. I think that was basically the hotel service study when there were cleaning women. They clean up the hotels, did a lot of physical activity. I mean, obviously, you have to walk the stairs up and down, you have to clean everything. And they thought they did nothing. They thought they were completely physically inactive, literally. And then those women were told, hey, you're actually doing a ton of physical activity and you should get this and this and this health benefit out of it. And I came back a month later, and what happened is that those women that were told that they're doing a ton of physical activity, they lost weight. Their blood pressure dropped by 10 points, and I felt better. And the only difference was that they were told that, hey, what you're doing is actually good for you. And
I
I
love
could
that.
point out a million examples, and it's just that mindset actually affects your body. That is how crazy as it is. And that's also what purpose does for you, because purpose is like an energy source for you. If you see meaning in the activities that you do, you have more energy. And it is simply because you do the activity, you might get stressed, but it doesn't bother you because you see the stress as something that is necessary. That increases your energy level in general. Let's say, again, how you look at stress affects whether you age faster. It also affects your performance. It affects how much stress you can tolerate. And if you see meaning in what you do, all of a sudden you can tolerate more stress. That is what happens.
I love that.
It's the same when you have a deadline, when you're like, oh, damn it, I have to submit this tomorrow. And I have like 3 hours left. I have to do this. And all of a sudden, all of the anxiety, all of the fatigue you've built up doesn't bother you anymore. And you have so much energy that you can just finish it. And it's basically what happens when you know your purpose, because you know, hey, the work that I do, it positively affects other people. And if I don't perform, then what happens to those people? I need to move my ass now. I might be tired, but this really matters. I want to do this. And that is how it all works. Again,
I love
passion.
it.
Passion and purpose is this energy source. And it works when your motivation runs out. Because let's be honest, motivation is just a feeling. You wake up, you might be motivated. You wake up, you might be not. I wasn't motivated this morning when I got up. And obviously, if you only work when you're motivated, you probably don't work much at all. Let's be honest.
So
Because
true.
you can rely on that. And that is why passion and purpose is like this unlimited energy source. And it goes back to flow science, because if you want to get dopamine from something that you do, you either A, need to love it, which makes sense if you love what you do, or B, you need to want to do it. And again, it goes back to autonomy. Love what you do, want to do what you have to do. If one of those two conditions is met, you get dopamine from the activity. That could, for example, be you hate tidying up, but you have to tidy up because you want to impress a girl. I don't know, whatever. It could be funny like that. And you tell yourself, I have to tidy up now because if I don't, she will see all of the mess in my room and I will look like an idiot. Or you can say, I don't want to do this. Don't want to learn right now, but I have to because I want to be prepared for the exam. I want to get a good grade. Or you can tell yourself, all right, this work absolutely sucks. I hate doing XYZ, but again, I have to do it because it had this and this meaning for me. It has this and this benefit for me. It has this and this uh, thing. So if it just gives a meaning, then all of a sudden, even the crappy work, I'd say, gives you dopamine. All of a sudden, the crappy work that you don't like has a meaning and you can actually do it. You're motivated to do it.
Right.
Just as a little background, so like I said, I like to go with the biology here because we all know about do what you love. But again, knowing the biological background behind it, knowing that it actually works, I find this very interesting. It's actually very simple to do. Again, just ask
Yeah.
yourself, do I love what I do? And if I don't love it, how can I give myself reasons to do it, to want to do it? Just think about that briefly, and that's all you need to do to get yourself into action. Although long term, of course, you want to make sure that everything you do contributes toward a bigger purpose, a bigger goal in life. That they have this North Star up there that you can say, all right, everything I do in my life works towards that. And this is what I do with my clients as well. I help them find their North Star. And I have many examples there, but again, it's just about knowing what do I actually want to accomplish in life and what I'm currently doing right now. Do I either love it or is it contributing towards my North Star? That's all you need. And bam, there you go. You're productive, hopefully.
I
But
love
in
that
some
because
cases,
even the things that seem monotonous, can be
mm,
helpful, right? Like those cleaning women who, thought they were just working and making money, but actually it turned out they were losing weight and getting healthier and doing all these different things. So I think you were gonna, or I think you had mentioned to me a story about Jim Quick, right? About
mm,
storytelling. You can tell that story,
yeah,
but how the story that you attach, which I think is also mindset, the story that you attach to it actually supports you in doing the thing because now it has a deeper meaning, it has a purpose, and it actually changes your whole view of how that thing is or what that thing is and what the purpose of that thing is, right? So I love that idea.
I think one of the things to point out is that how does one actually find your purpose? So how do you find your purpose? Where's it coming from?
Yeah.
And I think one of the important things here is story. Because why am I? Let's ask the question, why am I doing what I do right now? It has two reasons. I'm a neuroscientist and dementia researcher. That's because my mother developed dementia. And that's when I ask myself the question, damn, my grandma is kind of weird. So what happens to you when you actually lose your memories? You know, if your brain is all messed up. That's how my interest in neuroscience came about. And of course, why am I a coach now? Because I went through depression. So I have a personal bond to this topic. I have an emotional bond to this topic. And I think it's very important to have that you have some sort of emotional bond. I think you mentioned it yourself that, again, you suffer from burnout and your first relief was massages and things such as that. So that's why your personal connection to these things came about. That's why you're probably a burnout and passion coach right now. So it's finding your passion is usually rooted in your past. So it's something that you were connected to or that you are connected to. It's usually the worst days in your life, in fact. And that's where you draw your inspiration from. You have a personal connection to this topic. You have emotional connection to it. And that gives you additional neurochemistry once again to get into the flow state and hopefully make a difference for other people to help them not going through the same thing.
Yeah. It's what I call the pain to passion cycle, right? Using your pain to fuel your passion. So
It's actually one of the
absolutely.
most powerful things you can do. I love this a lot.
Yeah.
All right, which brings me actually to a very important question because I'm curious. We all have idols. We all have people we really admire, basically. So, who inspires you, Tiani? I mean, who
Good
gave you your
question.
sense of purpose? And I also remember that you attended a course by Anthony Robbins, by the way. But generally, who inspires you with this amazing sense of
So
purpose?
I'm going to say two people. One, Tony Robbins for sure. I'll get into that in a minute. But whenever I used to do presentations in front of people to help them overcome stress relief, I always talked about my mom because my mom has her own pain to passion story. And actually, it involves mindset too, because I always remember the story that she tells me. She says, she even mentioned it the other day. She goes, I always pictured myself. We came from the Dominican Republic, so she grew up in the farm, but she always envisioned herself in the city in New York. And so she had this vision of herself sitting in a convertible, top down, with wind going through her hair. So she always used that vision to push herself to get out of the rural farmland area to motivate her to get out. And eventually, obviously, we came to New York. It all worked out. But she always said that to me. She's like, I always had a vision, right? That goal that you talked about, Nicholas. Always had that vision of being in New York. And for her, it wasn't just the sports car and the wind. It was her definition of success, right? That was her definition of, this is where I know I'm going to find, my purpose, my happiness, and all the things to raise my family, right? So she ended up doing just that. And so she's always been a motivator for me in terms of like setting really epic goals and using those to spark, action toward my purpose, right? Toward the things that I love and that I care about. So she's definitely one of the biggest motivators. And then, of course, I met Tony Robbins back in, I learned about him back in 2009. I think it was 2010, and I started attending all his workshops. And his thing, right, his biggest quote is live with passion. And I always felt I had fire inside my body. I always felt that way. And certain things would bring up, certain things would spark it, and certain things would not, right? And so as I went through my career, that's when I noticed it, right? I went through depression, just like you, Nicholas, and I went through burnout and different moments of stress. And so I know that those things were just dampeners to my passion. But then I started finding the things that were fuel. And that's what Tony Robbins talks about. He talks about the fuel for your passion and living from that place of passion, because that's something that you align with and that you care about. So between the two of them, they were huge, huge motivators for me to set goals, realign, and just, go for the things that I'm really, really passionate about. And I mean, my mom, she ended up getting her, basically her master's degree all the way into her 40s and 50s. So there
That's
is no age. there is no time. There is only what you feel is in alignment for you in any given time in your life, right?
It reminds me a bit of my undergraduate degree. I did it in pharmaceutical biotechnology, but there was, I think, a 50-year-old housewife studying machine engineering or something. I think it was machine
Wow.
engineering. And she just one day decided, I want to do this now. So she just enrolled.
Wow.
And I
That's
think the
amazing.
story really is that it's never too late. You can always follow your interests. You can always follow your passion and your purpose, because at the end of the day, you have to think about it. You have only one life. And at the end of the day, when you're at your deathbed, you look back and you think, what I did, was that actually what I wanted to do? And if you can say, yes, that was exactly what I wanted to do, I think that is incredible if you can do that. So I always think at it from this perspective, because once again, at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter what you do, but you want to make sure that it matters what you do.
Right.
I think that is a nice way to put it.
I love that. Love that. Well, I know that your grandma was a big influence for you, right? As you turned your pain into passion. Were there other
That's,
people?
that's where it all started. But I think a big one, a big inspiration for me to actually become a coach was Brandon Burchard, the high performance
Mm,
coach. I mentioned it earlier, but it was actually just, I was watching his videos at the time, and he really inspired me to just become a coach myself and help other people. And one of the things I really like was actually, or I still remember, was a video about newspaper. And it's just thinking about, if you, what you do were to be posted in a newspaper, if your decisions that you make in your life were to be announced publicly in the newspaper, would you be happy about yourself? It's just asking the simple question. And if there's something like, I watch porn every single day, and think about it, what do you mean if that was publicly announced? Like, okay. So that's just the thing I mean. It's just what you do if it were to be announced in the newspaper. And I think this works for every decision that you make in your life very well as well.
yeah,
Would you be proud of yourself? It's just zooming out and thinking about it from another perspective.
I
It's
love
always
that.
very interesting.
That's awesome.
Anyhow,
Brendan Bouchard is amazing. Love him.
Brandon is awesome. Holy shit. Anyhow, now that we're nearing the end of the Q&A, I would like to ask you that what is your favorite method or tool to help people to find clarity or purpose in life?
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about tools. Tools are always helpful, right? So there's two
Absolutely.
things that I want to offer because they're interrelated with each other. And I go into it in extraordinary detail in my course, but two-parter. Part A is a life inventory, which basically for people to really get into their purpose, especially if you're older, because now you've had a few years, or even if you've just had, some time in between college and maybe your first career or something. There are certain things that you've experienced in your life that are tells. I call them tells or signs that basically can help you understand, the trajectory of your life, um, certain things that have been important, why, right? And so revisiting those things in the past to present can bring up memories, feelings, connections, and allow you to sort of pinpoint things that you can explore. So I always tell people to go through the age brackets of their life. So 1 to 7, 8 to 15, 16, 23, like 7 years at a time. And
Mhm.
ask yourself, like, what did you experience during those times? What were you really interested and passionate about? What connections did you make? Were there any huge moments, huge pivot points, huge synchronicities, all these things? Did you end up moving? Did something drastic happen? So during those pockets of time, you can start seeing if there are any patterns over time. And then you can use that to start understanding, like, well, I was really passionate about this or that or this and that, right? So then you can start writing those things down. And so the second part is creating a purpose triangle, right? So if you look at the triangle, the bottom it's divided into three. So 1, 2, and then there's 3 parts. So the bottom half of the triangle is those things that you discovered in your life inventory that you thought maybe were passions and interests over time, right? Then the second part of the triangle is things that you're really passionate about, that you were like, oh my gosh, I thought I was going to make a career out of that. So one of the things for me, for example, is I love salsa dancing. I even like used to
Okay.
perform publicly. So I was dancing 5 days a week. Like it was insane. I was so incredibly passionate about it for many different reasons. And I didn't think I was going to make it into a career necessarily, but it was something I was really enjoying. So that would have been part of the second category.
So what I would call a secondary flow activity. So
Right.
a side activity that also gets you into flow, that you enjoy and that you're passionate about.
Correct. Yes.
Because the
And they
more
could be
flow you
hobbies.
get, the more flow you get. That is basically
Yeah.
it.
And I love those because they still fuel you, right? You can still use them. They don't have to be your career, but they can be something you really care about. So then the last category, which is the top of the triangle, is adding meaning as the key ingredient, right? So of those smaller passions, right? It's a smaller list. It's everything that you care about, your passions, and then the top part, which is what of those is truly meaningful for you and something that you can see doing long term, right? I call them like the themes of your life. Do I want to be a salsa dancer for the rest of my life? Probably not, right? But
maybe.
but maybe someone else. Actually,
I probably
yeah.
I couldn't imagine myself doing that, but hey.
Nice. Actually, the instructor that taught the class left from being a lawyer to become a salsa instructor. So hers actually ended up being at the top, right? It might have been a really big passion for her, and maybe being a lawyer was also a passion for her. But the thing that truly brought her meaning was being an instructor, a salsa instructor. So hers tended to be that, not mine. I just use that as my hobby now. But anyway, the point is that the last one is really about infusing meaning into it. Is this something that you really want to support maybe humanity with, right? Is there something that you want to be represented as or represent out in the world? And be like your legend, right? Your story, like long term. Is this something that you actually want to live with, live through, and be about as you go out into the world? So those are the three pieces. Yeah.
That was basically moving from passion to purpose, because you went from dancing, went from doing it to actually instructing it. And I think that is just this transition you see from passion to purpose.
Yeah.
Which I find really interesting.
Love it.
Oh.
So how about you? What tools have you found are really helpful for your clients?
Now, what I do is actually something I derived from the Flow Research Collective, and it's called the Passion Recipe. I currently let my clients do it, so they're hopefully sick of it by now. And what it basically is just starting with a list. So list 25 things you're really curious about. So if you had a free weekend, what would you read? What would you watch? As simple as that. And it's really to get this interest, this curiosity, because again, that's where the dopamine is coming from. You want to have some interest, some curiosity, because that is, believe it or not, a dopamine trigger. So that's what releases dopamine in your brain. So you want that. And when you have those 25 things you're interested in, you need to think about, all right, I have 25 things here. Which of these things do somewhat fit together? In my case, I'm, for example, interested in neuroscience. I'm interested in high performance. So can you combine those things? Yes, you can, because that's what I'm doing it. I'm a neuroscience-based high performance coach. So once again, it's just thinking about how can you all combine this stuff? And then the next level would then just be to spend a little bit of time with it. I call it curiosity time. I love doing that myself every single day. It's just spending 30 minutes a day looking into these things, watching YouTube videos. I do this with dinner sometimes. Or just reading an article about things that interest you. And that is how passion develops, because the thing is, passion is developed by being curious. You don't just wake up and hey, this is what I love doing. This is the purpose of my life. Probably not. So again, it develops over time by looking into it. What are you interested in? And once you really know you have this down, another side advantage is that, by the way, that you develop some expertise. Because as you watch all of these videos about the topic you're interested in, you read articles about it, at some point you actually know a little bit about it. and then it makes fun to talk about it. And there's also the next step. It's just talking to people about what you love. You can say, hey, I'm a high performance coach. I love having my coffee in the morning. I love having my cold shower. Do you do that as well? I think it's really cool. It releases dopamine in your brain, you know? You should do that. It's anti-inflammatory, etc. So just talking about it, so you get a little bit of oxytocin from there, a little bit more dopamine. And eventually you can think about, all right, I have this thing I'm really interested in. High performance is really cool. And think about, what can I do with it? How can I help other people with it? Is there a big challenge in the world that can potentially be overcome with my interest? Like you, Teany, burnout is a big challenge in the world. And what you do could help solve this challenge. I want to help people with depression, make them high performers, make them help to accomplish their biggest goals. That's a big purpose. So once again, that would be the final step. How can you use what you are passionate about to help other people? Yeah, I think in combination, guys, if you use those two tools, I'm pretty sure that you get a much better idea of what is actually going on. So what do you want to do? What is it that you want to accomplish in the future? And also thinking about the activity that you do in your everyday life. Are it just mundane stuff, just stuff that you do just because? Or are the activities that you do actually meaningful for you? And are they actually contributing to something bigger in your life? Do you have this bigger theme, this bigger mission in your life? Think about it. I think that'll be a nice one to close today, in fact.
Yeah, love it.
All right, in that case, so thank you everyone for joining. It was nice to have you. And as always, I want to mention at the end that, of course, I'm offering one-to-one high performance coaching right now. So I help people to get into the absolute best peak shape, physically and mentally. And like Teany, I also help people to find their passion and purpose with the passion recipe, for example. And of course, flow coaching to get into the state of total absorption, and which your productivity and creativity goes up like crazy. So if you're interested in becoming your very best, always, you can email me at nicholas.peterreich@gmail.com. On YouTube, I will also post everything in the description, and we can have a consultation meeting and, of course, work it all out. Talk about your goals and make them a reality. You probably have a lot to offer as well, Teany. You have a bunch of courses, I'm sure.
Yeah, so I have two courses, but one of them particular in reference to this is my Purpose with Passion program, which is now a DIY program. And then also I have my burnout program, which infuses the purpose as well in it. So if you want one-on-one, go with the burnout coaching. And if you want to do DIY, then go for the Purpose with Passion coaching. So, oh my gosh, I love this topic. So juicy, so good. We're going to do probably more work together, guys. This is the end of the series. This is the 4 of 4, all about purpose with passion. But Nicholas and I are going to definitely be doing work in the very near future, and maybe we'll do more lives. Who knows? We'll be back.
If you have any suggestions for topics, guys, email us. We're always happy to receive those. In any case, have a wonderful Wednesday evening, guys. At least in my case, it's actually evening in Lancaster now, in the UK. I think it's afternoon for you, right?
Yeah, it's 1.
Yeah, in any case, have a nice day, and I will see you in another video.
And that concludes the video. So as always, thank you for your time and attention. Also, if you have any questions, just drop them in the comments and I will answer them for you. And lastly, if you want to reach the next level, just shoot me an email at nicholas.peterreich@gmail.com. Neuroscience-backed high performance and flow coaching. More information in the video description. That said, have a passionate week filled with purpose high performance, and I will see you in the next video.